So Ecotourism Kenya is a membership organization that was formed in 1996 and whose primarily mandate is to support responsible and sustainable tourism practices within the tourism industry by linking community tourism and conservation, that is people, profit, and planet. And one of our main flagship program areas, because we do have many program areas, but today we are going to focus on one, which is our Eco-Rating Certification Program. This is a very systematic tool that used to assess accommodation facility based on the 4 criteria, that is environmental conservation, we have community engagement, we have cultural preservation, as well as business practice, because these are very key and very core in promoting sustainability. So we'll move on to our today's research paper, that is on enhancing sustainability in tourism through Ecotourism Kenya Eco-Rating Certification Program. Maybe you can proceed as we wait for it to be displayed on the screen. So the introduction of the background, that is the problem statement. We understand that tourism contributes to around 10% of Kenya global domestic product and also supports 1.6 million jobs. That is making it a vital pillar of the economy. However, its rapid growth is placing increasing pressure on natural resources, biodiversity protection, as well as local communities. At the same time, I've been told that global expectations for sustainability are rising, underscoring the urgent need for strong frameworks, such as Eco-Rating certification, that effectively integrate, that is environmental, social governance, as well as community engagement. So without such strong frameworks, the sector risks the undermining long-term sustainability, community well-being, as well as its competitiveness in the evolving global market. So that is the problem statement for our research. Then we'll move on to the research gap. So the gap is, while the global scholars demonstrate that certification can strengthen sustainability and competitiveness, we have very few empirical studies have examined these dynamics within the tourism sector. And also available literature has focused on descriptive program outcomes with minimal critical assessment of certification role in shaping enterprise competitiveness and by extension sustainability. So you can move on to the next slide. So the importance of this study is just addressing these gaps for the policymakers, investors, and also practitioners who are seeking for scalable models of sustainable tourism that can balance economic and also environmental stewardship, that is according to, and also to be in line with Vision Kenya Vision 2030, UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as well as African Union Agenda. So we are on the main objective. So the study today, it examined the contribution of the Eco-Rating certification, that is enhancing sustainability within the tourism sector by promoting the 4 key pillars, that is the environmental conservation, community engagement, as well as sustainability-driven corporate culture. So those are the 3 questions that are being addressed under this research, where the Eco-Rating certification program, the influence and its adoption, using the 3 criteria under the conservation, water, our energy, and biodiversity management. And also number 2, we can talk about now the way certification strengthen community engagement as well as local benefit sharing, and also to what extent certification shaped corporate business practices. We can move on to the next slide, please. So the research design, it was employed a qualitative research approach to provide, so the technique is quantitative scores from checklists were aggregated to determine compliance level, as well as qualitative feedback from interviewers. We can move on to the next slide. So the next slide is about the findings. We can see number 1 is biodiversity conservation. So I forgot to mention, under environmental conservation, we are looking at specific things, that is biodiversity protection. We also have carbon footprint reduction, waste management. Also we can talk about water management and energy use. So for the biodiversity conservation, we can see there's a conservation model that is being adapted by the Eco-Rated facility. And just an example of the conservation model is on the wildlife corridors, the support for the wildlife corridors, as well as We do have facility who are paying salaries to the rangers to support on the logistic and also to support on the initiatives under that. We also have facility who are paying the conservation fees to the community just to support them as well. And also we have a partnership, that is lease, where they lease the conservancy to support conservation as well as initiatives that the facility are doing, that is incentives to give to the community, to enhance, to promote them, and also to encourage them to preserve land for the conservation initiatives. We also talk about the carbon footprint reduction, that is nature-based solution, as well as adoption of carbon reduction of stroke offsetting. And one of the things under nature-based solution, the facility have also adapted maybe the nature-based solution in terms of, let's say, hiking, recycling, as well as archeries, just to promote and also to reduce the carbon footprint, and also adoption of reduction or offsetting. We can also talk about facilities who have adapted tree planting exercise for indigenous trees, where the tourists, when they are coming to the facility, they are able to do that. And you can also see in terms of the vehicles, they are using vehicles which are very eco-friendly on their safaris, so that they can promote, also reduce carbon footprint within their facilities. So we talk about waste management. So there's a facility, they are very keen on taking waste audits just to be able to measure and also to see the ways they can be able to reduce on their waste. They also have the segregation. They went ahead, other than what NEMA has already stipulated, the facilities that went ahead and further segregate their waste. We can see all the facility at 100. We see adoption of waste reduction and recycling, which is very, very also key for this initiative. So water management, we can see facility are already monitoring their water within their facility. We have water treatment and also adoption of sustainable water practices like boreholes and also rainwater harvesting, just to ensure sustainable water practices within their facilities. Energy use, we can talk about best practices that have already been implemented by the facility in terms of even using their energy saving bulbs within their facility. They are also monitoring their energy just to see how much energy they are using and also the ways they can be able to reduce on that. And you can also talk about reduction in fossil fuel because most of them are using renewable energy for their facility and also transition to renewable energies. We can move on to the next slide on about community engagement. So that is community impact and also cultural support. So in terms of cultural integration, there is support for artisan awareness program, where there is a program the facilities are doing to support the local artists in terms of now purchasing what they are doing and also promoting what they are doing and also giving them space to be able to sell their items. We also have engagements. Number 2, we are talking about benefit sharing, and also in terms of benefit sharing, we can talk about facility allowing the guests to visit the village visits, which is very, very also key. And also now performance for the village, and also they have a project to promote, at least 2 projects to promote community initiatives within their facilities. In terms of procurement, when we are talking about community engagement, they are really, we can see that 90% of the eco-rated facility actually sourced locally in terms of supporting what the community are offering, which is very key for matter sustainability and also to ensure that the community are actually benefiting from the tourism benefits. In terms of employment, they also have youth program within the local where they support the youths to secure a program, and also they support in terms of scholarship to see how far they can be able to go. And also they hire once that person has already given them, they have already done exemplary in whatever they are doing. And also in terms of local hiring, we've already spoke about that. We can move on to corporate culture and workforce development. So this is very key for any tourism sector, and there's a lot of things that we look under corporate culture. That is local culture, and also heritage preservation, where they ensure that visitors are well informed of the local culture and they can be able to embrace it and also respect that. We have corporate practices, like we said, facility introduce sustainability policies, and also they strengthen compliance. And this is also matters that can be able to support, not necessarily in terms of marketing and compliance, but to ensure governance and cultural transformation. So the recommendation, that is a research recommendation. So we recommend enabling policies. This is in terms of linking voluntary certification to tax rebates, as well as reduced licensing for compliant, and then establishing of green financing schemes through bank and development partners. We can also talk about the prerequisite, where the voluntary certification that are being taken by the facility to be given a preference for the tax rebates and all that. Scaling up certification also, because the study only focused on the accommodation facility. Probably we can broaden the scope to beyond accommodation to include tour operators, travel agents, and also any other key tourism value chain. We can talk about also awareness and advocacy, because that is also very important to enhance understanding and also visibility of education within the tourism sector. Capacity building is also very key to strengthen sustainability and also integration across the tourism sector. We need capacity building, and that is collaboration between private and public partnership. Benefit sharing models, this is very important for policymakers, because remember this is a private sector, so we need policymakers also should institutionalize transparency in benefit sharings for the local communities. So that is a study limitation. Like we say, the study also limited to 87 facilities under the eco-rating certification, but maybe the study can focus more on innovation as well as customer perspective to provide a holistic understanding on these. So as my conclusion, I'd like to say that study confirms that eco-rating certification program has significantly enhanced Kenya's tourism sector by promoting environmental conservation, social economic development, and embedding sustainability-driven corporate culture. So these outcomes strongly align with global scholars, affirming that certification scheme enhance competitiveness and also by extension, sustainability performance of an enterprise. While also the study kept in mind that reflecting of the local realities such as limited uptake due to its voluntary nature. Because you remember we are only 87 facilities that are eco-rated currently. And since its inception, we have 300. But due to its voluntary nature and also the low uptake, we can see that the numbers are very, very low. Yeah, so I'm being told the time is out, so thank you so much. Maybe you can look more on our website, and also together you can also be able to explore on the full research paper. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't want Lynette to come out as quickly from the stage, because I know certification and sustainability are always very strong with the industry. Maybe, Lynette, you want to pick just one or two questions from the industry on anything they may have around certification as a factor in sustainability. Any question, please? Yes, we have one over there.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Stephen Masava. I work with Uganda Wildlife Authority, a body that's responsible for conservation in the neighboring country, Uganda. So I'm actually the sister or opposite organization for KWS. Now, through your conversation, you have said this is a voluntary initiative, I guess. And what if people do not comply? Eco-tourism is one of the wishes and one of the new aspects of conservation that we wish to aspire to. But if not mandated by government and you don't give incentives or penalties for people that don't comply, what do we do? I want to give an example from Uganda where we don't have an eco-tourism body like this one. And some of the practices that we wish to do are undertaken by government through the conservation effort. So we have government bodies that conserve, we work with partners, but we do encourage them. If they don't use the resources properly, they don't engage communities, we only can offer incentives through government. For example, those that comply and work with, we want them to work with us. But the best that we can do at this stage, we have inbuilt in our law that gives 20% of the revenue that we get through local government. You can imagine it's not going straight to the individuals and communities, but through local government. So what can you do to enforce some of these best practices as an organization? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Because as an organization, like I say, we are an organization as a private sector, registered under as an NGO. So probably just to ensure that actually these facilities are embracing the best practices. So what we are encouraging is that private partnership, private public partnership through maybe the TRA, where we can be able to have that conversation. We see how best we can be able to support each other in that each and every key tourism player within the tourism sector can be able to embrace these responsible and also sustainable tourism practices within the tourism sector. So I think it's just a matter of public-private partnership, because as a private sector, we can be able to enforce and also to force facility to uptake the sustainability and also the eco-rating certification. But now through partnership with TRA and also by extension NEMA, I think this can be able to be possible for that. Probably it can be prerequisite for you now to be able to get a license. You need to have like a sort of an eco certification, maybe with a local organization like Ecotourism Kenya. Thank you. Do you have any other question? Yes?
Sorry, we are done. We only gave out for one question. And Lynette, just with confidence, I think one thing which is critical here, you had a question on does certification strengthen community engagement? Does certification shape corporate business practices? I think you need to be very confident and just say quick words on that, very quick.
Yeah. So like I was saying in my conclusion, that actually certification promote business culture, because when we say we go beyond what the government needs. Like I say, there's in terms of now waste management, practices and plans within the facility. They need to have policies, like child protection policies within their facility. They need also to be compliant in matters community engagement. Because for you, you cannot be able to be certified as an eco-rated facility where you are not supporting the community, you are not environmental conscious, as well as now promoting of the local culture and also preservation. So those are the main key things that we said, and also as a conclusion. So the certification is not merely a marketing tool or a compliance tool, but it goes beyond that. It enhances, and also promote cultural transformation within the tourism sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynette. I think we give our last clap. I think from Lynette, you are keen enough to say that the most important thing, let's go into partnerships for us to really get to certification. But I think the speaker has given confidence that yes, certification can actually enhance your businesses. And through certification, then you can be able to enhance sustainability, because we are sustainability in practice. And I think, team, now we'll be progressing. I think this is a point on time that we are going to extend knowledge and conversation at a panel. And allow me at this time to call upon the panel to come in. The panel moderator, I would request the panel moderator to come in just quickly. Just again, that very quickly. I'm gonna get you, lady.
My name is Kuka.
Yeah.
That name is hard.
So Friday.
Okay, no. Can I call them?
Yes,
Kaimuri Karaoke.
makes sense to introduce you. What's you work for? You work for?
I work in disabilities, but I've done a lot of communication work around tourism.
Okay, topic 5, shaping the future of African
So, can I just
sustainability. Yes, sit down. Sustainability in action. Yeah, so we are going to the phase of conversations, which will be moderated by Kaimuri Karaoke Njeru, who is going to moderate the session now. Now, it's your pleasure, Karaoke, Kaimuri, I'm sorry, guys. Kaimuri Karaoke. It's your pleasure now to invite your panelists. Please give them a brief introduction, and feel free also to introduce yourself briefly to the audience, then invite your panel.
Thank you very much. We live in a very free country, and actually earlier I sat down with my panelists, and I'm not sure I can fit in their big shoes. So kindly ask them to come up front. They'll take a minute each to introduce themselves, but as they come, my name is Kaimuri Karaoke. I work in the disability space with children with learning disabilities, but I have worked in communication for a long time to create awareness about conservation and conservation matters. So that's why I'm seated here today. I work very closely with my twin sister who works in bamboo, and they plant plantations for manufacturing of bamboo products for sustainability. So kindly, my able panelists, please come and introduce yourselves. We had a very nice conversation before we walked in here, so this is going to be a heated one. Karibuni sana. Yes.
So the moderator having this panel for the next 30 minutes. So
Oh, it's 30, not 40.
30 minutes.
Someone took my 10 minutes. You took my 10 minutes, but it's okay. So could we kindly start the introductions from my immediate right, and then we can get into the discussions.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Njehia. I am a director of a boutique sustainable tourism consultancy known as Tiranjani Africa. I also sit on advisory boards for Ecotourism Kenya, where I'm the current chairperson. I also sit on the advisory board of Kenya Tourism Federation, as well as a venture company known as Purple Elephant Ventures. So in a nutshell, what do? I connect the dots, yeah? Having worked in operations for many years, I think now it's just time for me to connect the dots so that we can actually move away from just speaking on panels about sustainability or doing research and then filing the research on folders somewhere, but it's just time that we implement what we are talking about.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you very much. Good morning. So my name is Jeremiah Mutisia. I'm the CEO of Saruni Basecamp. Some of you might know us as Saruni, others as Basecamp. Been doing this now for the last 14 years. We're sitting well in the conservation space, so I'll be talking about that. A short story about ourselves. So we are a group of 13 camps and lodges across Samburu and Mara, 10 in the Mara, 3 in Samburu. We're sitting in 6 conservancies, community conservancies, that I will also be talking about much later. So I'm really glad to be here and hoping to share some stories and experiences. Thank you.
Kindly, before the next speaker introduces themselves, please talk loudly, or if we could get the volume to be louder, I think that will be good enough for everyone. But
okay, good morning.
Morning.
I hope I'm audible. My name is Wangoi. I am a lecturer at Catholic University of Eastern Africa currently. Previously, I was in the development space, and I was working with an organization called National Drought Management Authority, an organization that gave me an opportunity to be able to see the work that is ongoing on in the area of resilience building and the interconnectiveness of tourism, and also taking care of our ecosystem. Right now, I have political ambition. I intend to vie for the Member of Parliament, Gilgil constituency. Thank you.
Thank you, Amboi.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dominic Grammaticus. I have been in the tourism sector in Kenya for more than 25 years, 15 of those as MD of the Governor's Camp Collection in Kenya and Rwanda, running lodges and tour operations and fixed-wing aviation and ballooning in Kenya, and lodges and tour operating in Rwanda. I do quite a lot of work in the government space. I have been helping certain elements of government put together the Kenya strategic tourism policies. And I work with Kenya Tourist Board on a new initiative called Adventure Tourism Kenya, which is a very interesting new development in Kenya. On ecosystem preservation and regeneration, I do a fair amount of work there as well. In the Mara, I am part of an investors group that brings together investors and local government, and I'm a director of the Masai Mara Wildlife Conservancies Association. My special interest is the intersection of tourism with people, planet, and profit. Like, how do those three go together? And how does tourism play its role in sustainability, socioeconomic development, and conservation?
Fantastic. So,
Great, thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Yvonne, Dr. Yvonne Mainge Morioki. I currently serve as a technical advisor for NCBA Bank, one of the sponsors of this prestigious event. But I also serve as a technical advisor for several other financial institutions and manufacturers as well in the space of climate risk advisory. I help organizations quantify the impact of climate risk on their balance sheets, and I help them plan for sort of future decision-making processes. I have a rich sort of research experience in the space. I've been in this space for about 17 years now, actually, to date, and very excited to be here and part of this discussion.
fantastic. Thank you, Dr. And we'll start with you. We'll just dive into the questions. And again, panelists, if you have something to add, kindly lift your hands, and if you want to add to any of the conversations. But we'll try and limit every question to about 3 minutes now. I thought it's going to be 5, but I think we can do this. So, Dr. kindly tell us, how can African nations design sustainable tourism master plans that balance economic growth with green goals and long-term resilience?
Perfect.
So how do you balance all these out?
Perfect. So I guess maybe the best place for me to start off is from a contextual point of view. We are really living in unprecedented times. And just thinking about the scale of the climate crisis, I think we often look at action on this as a nice to have, particularly from a corporate point of view. But the reality is the climate crisis is really sort of not just impacting local vulnerabilities as they are today, but actually going to impact how we think about tourism as a whole sector as we move into the future. I think we really need to sort of, I've had some great presentations around emissions reporting and the value of emissions reporting and where we sit. But I think it's really important to put into context that globally emissions are actually going up. The real hard fact right now is that emissions are going up. They're going up by less than they used to in previous years, but they're still going up. Which means as a continent, Africa is looking at the significant dire impacts of climate change for the next at least 100 years. We are locked into these impacts. Like it or not, irrespective of what we do, we are locked into some of these more dire, more extreme droughts, more extreme flooding, thinking about the impacts on our oceans and sea level rise, what we're seeing with our coral reefs. Read a study a couple of weeks ago that was just talking about the impact of resource scarcity in the Masai Mara. And Kenya looking at the Mara as one of its biggest tourism earners every year during the migration. There's actually data that's showing us that wildebeests are severely depressed because they cannot access certain resources and they're starting to move their migration patterns, which means in reality you're looking at not the same level of interest and access in our tourism spaces as we have seen in the past. All of this to say, green growth and resilience and some of these things they're not nice things to talk about anymore. They are so central to how we plan and how we think about our industry surviving in the future. I think the thing that I would say, that is quite pivotal to that is that we need to think about development from a point of context, being very, very context specific, and we need to think about it from a point of bringing every single actor to the table, because every actor's perspective and point of view is really critical to how we build resilience. We cannot take this sort of adopt and look at what another market is doing, which is what we've done a lot in the past. We've looked outside and thought, okay, so we need to focus on this because so-and-so is focusing on this, and then we come and sort of copy-paste here. Local-based adaptation and resilience is incredibly critical, and I really wanted to point out to the fact just that, as we think about planning and what is integral, it really is that local level thinking, building those systems, and thinking about local collaboration.
Thank you very much. Dominic, the emissions are going up. We need to contextualize our approaches to conservation, and I think you've worked in that space. What are the policies that are in place to be able to grow that, and what do we need to do collectively to be able to help those policies be accomplished?
Actually, let me start with the first half of that question, the policy framework. The policy framework, which you asked, how do we develop it? Actually, Kenya's already developed it. And it's a very powerful, very comprehensive policy. It's built around the word diversity, and it is a national level tourism policy that builds on some key strengths that Kenya has, which people don't really focus on. If you think about Kenya as a tourism destination, it has a combination of factors, not just safari and beach, but it has mountains, deserts, sandy beaches, coral reefs, inland lakes, forests, etc. Now, all of these are diverse geographies, but it also has layered onto that diverse cultures and diverse offerings, for example, adventure tourism. So part of the policy is building out those frameworks which are there, and allied to that is the policy, the legal policy framework. Again, it's very good. Kenya's legislation at a national level, at a county level, is all in place to support its sustainable development and proper management of fragile resources. The second half of my answer is really execution and how we implement those policies, and that's where we're much weaker. That's where lapses in enforcement, perhaps, or in following our own policies are starting to really show as pressure on fragile landscapes. Everybody in this room knows what they are. You just need to go to a wildebeest crossing point on a bad day, or Kimana Gate at Amboseli on a bad day, and you'll see the pressures that are there. So we have the resources, we have the talent, we have people working on the ground who are extremely competent, but we have some lapses and weaknesses at execution and enforcement that are perhaps letting us down.
Thank you very much. Maybe Angela want to add something briefly before I go to Jeremiah and Wangui?
Maybe just to circle back to what Yvonne and Dominic are saying, yeah? When we talk about sustainable planning,
yes,
and master plans in particular, I think there's 4 key things that we must consider. So number 1 is balancing growth and the green goals. And when we talk about balancing growth, it goes beyond just the numbers. It talks about integrated planning. It talks about benefit sharing for the local communities. But it also talks about carrying capacity thresholds. So this is what I find. Most of us go and do environmental impact assessments, but we never talk about the threshold. Yeah. So what has happened is that we are talking about increasing number of bed nights, increasing number of hotels, but we are not asking ourselves, can our ecosystems manage that? So this is where the integrated planning comes in. We always need to remember that when you're planning for tourism, conscious travelers buy a ticket of responsibility. It's about the impact.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love the word impact. And again, I think what the biggest theme here today is how do you combine conservation, community, and collaboration. So Wangui, I know you've studied, Wangui, you studied a lot, you've studied tourism quite a bit, and that Jeremiah, you work in the space. So I want the two of you to handle this. How can community-led conservation and heritage help? How can those models help? How can we develop models rather that can help us grow conservation? What do we need to mash in to be able to grow conservation based on your research and of course with your work, Jeremiah, in what to do in the conservation space? Yes. So we could start with Wabui, kindly.
Before we go to that,
Wangui.
I needed to say something about planning.
No problem. Carry on and then you answer that.
I needed to say this. I think there is also a problem with planning. I want to read for you what Paris Agreement. We know that Paris Agreement is the guiding framework on how sustainable solution, anything to do with climate change should be handled. Article 9 says, developed countries or parties shall provide financial resources to assist developing country parties, and it goes on and on. I have a challenge with that because first of all, assisting is not obligatory. We are back to begging. Secondly, African nations, including Kenya, are giving a lot of solutions to the challenges we're having with the climate today. For instance, if you have a tablet, if you have a phone, if you have any form of electronic, it has cobalt that comes from Congo. We are now speaking about EVs, the electric vehicles. They have lithium, which comes partly in Africa and other developing nations. How about Africa is compensated at the market value fairly so that the money we are going to get will be injected in tourism and other areas? I belong to a generation that is tired of solutions that are designed to ensure that Africa is given something, and then after Africa is given something, everybody gets a license to come and take resources that are supposed to be injected in our economy. Thank you.
So, thank you so much for that point. And I'm asking, so we have polished policies and all these things. How then do we implement these polished policies that people come and admire and link with also opportunities for the tourism sector and the communities around us to be able to create a tourism industry that's inclusive and conservative? Jeremiah, kindly you can jump to that and then you can go back to Wangui.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting conversation, but let me pull back a bit and start here. So, if you look at the conservation space in Kenya and community conservancies for that matter, it's actually something you should pay attention to. And I'm saying this with a reason. Picture Mara today, we have 25 conservancies. I'm not sure if there's anyone from KWCA or MMWCA here, you can confirm the figures. And that area that has community conservancies, I'll talk about community conservancies a bit, is bigger than the National Reserve. It's bigger. The last time I checked, I think it was 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.4 times. And this is a very critical area. I was chatting earlier with the panelists today, and I was saying, if a few of the investors and bold community members didn't come on board to do this 15 years ago and say, the community say, we give our land to the investors. In partnership, we shake hands. We give you our land and you operate it sustainably for the future. If they didn't do that, we would have a crisis today. A real crisis. Mara would be gone or going. And that concept, I don't think we've paid a lot of attention to it. So it's important we pay a lot of attention to that. And I'm sure there are other conservancies and conservation models around Kenya and around the world. But I'm specifically saying this because that was a very clear start of community and the investors or the tourism partners collaboration. And that model today, 15 or so years down the line, has actually been tested to an extent where it's now a business model that is documented. We operate in that conservation space. So today, out of our 13 camps, like I talked earlier of Saruni Base Camp, 11 of those are in the community conservancies. And 2 of those, or 3 of those, are actually in community conservancies where we are the only investor in that community conservancy. What that means today is if we pulled out of that terrain today, close to 500,000 acres would be endangered because there's no other economic activity. There's carbon and the rest, but I'm talking as we speak now. Or close to 2,000, 3,000 people would actually be not earning income. So we're talking about a model here that has been tested over time and that I think we need to proudly take to the world. And I want to agree with your point on policy and also Angela's point on policy because we don't lack policies. We also don't lack bold investors who can take this to the next level. What we actually lack is the commitment by both parties and meeting at a point. Now, let me come back to your question and the experience that we have. So for me, 2 things stand out if you want to make this a success. One is, as an organization, if you're in this already or you're coming into this, you must be very clear on your purpose because it's not easy. Let's be very honest. To operate in an area where there's no control, because basically what you're doing in these conservation spaces is you are the government, you are the policy maker, the agreement that you sign with the community is what controls your business model. So that means if this is not structured well enough, anyone could wake up tomorrow and say, I'm tired. So my point is, I think the structure should be very clear. We have policies from the government side. You saw the academic paper from Ecotourism Society today here. All those points have been documented. And there exists quite some clear conservation agreements that are controlling both what the investor should do, but also what the landowner should do. I think getting that structure right and embedding that in your purpose or vision as an organization is very clear. So I would say, number 1, get the structure right. Number 2, I would say align the people. Because truth be told, working in an area where the landowners are not organized and they're not in this, you don't have a business model. It could blow up in flames in a short time. So the people must be aligned. What is in this for us? And my experience is, if you look at most of the conservancies today, it's changed from being just a business model to this is actually a real conservation model that can outlive generations, to an extent where everybody knows this is what I expect from this kind of a partnership across all the parties. And if the people are aligned into that kind of a thinking, and they all know that we sign this together, we are in trust, we operate it, we get what we get out of it, the investor gets what they get out of it, that kind of a partnership takes you far. So number one is structure, then go to the people, align the people. And the last one, which is the easiest and which is for all of us who are in this industry, is really to just align your processes, because then you can't say one thing and do the other. And what do I mean here? You must ensure that your processes are also following what is on the paper. And he gave an example today, and I think it was supported by somebody else, of a model in Rwanda where you put up a small camp, and that camp today has built 12 schools. There are very clear examples in Kenya today that have moved just from a small tourism operation to a very large movement where the community is actually benefiting from that. So I think making sure your processes and your day-to-day activities align to what you've signed up helps a lot. And let me end by saying this, because there are a lot of benefits that come out of these partnerships. Because what we're seeing from the market today, because we moved from what we used to call ecologists those years back, in the founding years of ecotourism, to what we're calling sustainability today. And I'm sure you can spend a day here unpacking sustainability. But for me, the success of these models that we're talking about is now. It is because when you go to the trade fairs, walk in here and sit in a desk, you will realize the guest of today is not ticking the box of a gold tap, 10-inch mattress, and you name it. That guest is traveling to us, and I want to agree with you, to see, experience, and be with the people of Kenya, be with the Maasais, be with the Samburus, be with all of us. That is the first tick box. What value do I add to the community, to yourselves when I come there? The mattress, the bed, the gold tap has fallen further down on the checklist. So I just wanted to end it at that.
Okay, Angela. So we've heard about policies, and we say we have polished policies. And we know that people want to travel. I mean, the traditional reason why we take holidays, or people take holidays away from where they live, is because they want to interact with culture, nature, and infrastructure. Now, if we make our tourism sustainable, what does the market look like? And what is the role of technology in the market as well?
Very good question. And I think let me pick it up from where Jeremiah left it. Yeah. When we start talking about marketing, right now we're in an expo. And I think I started by saying I used to be in operations before I moved into development. So one of the key things for any business, and I think the guys here with the lodges will agree, is you don't want your business to suffer because you're being sustainable, right? But one thing we also know is that the tourists now are more engaged and aware on what their choices want, because we've had them say, we have a new traveler, yeah? So what is this traveler looking for when they start to think, I want to go on a holiday? So one of the things that a conscious traveler will look at is provenance, authenticity. Is this place real? Or will I come and then I just find a place that's all forged up? You know, I'm not feeling that real vibe of what, Africa is, yeah? Then they'll look at the community benefit. We've had Dominic talk about 9 rooms that build 13 schools. Do I want to be associated with such a brand? Of course, yes, yeah? Then they'll also look at environmental impacts, yeah? Because we are constantly talking about zero waste. The lady on Jumbo Jet spoke about reducing their emissions. You're conscious about it. So those are the things that this traveler will want. Now, what are we communicating to them? Showing a bed? You know, I mean, when you go on the flowers, and pun intended for anybody who's running accommodations here, what are we marketing to them? Yeah, where are the experiences? Where is that authenticity? Yeah, so when we talk about marketing, we need to understand that winning conscious travelers will take 3 key things, and this is how I look at it. Number 1 is that authenticity and measurable impact. If you're talking about your sustainable this, and we do that, and we're working about reducing our waste, quick question, do you have a certification? Lynette just told us earlier on, they're less than 100.
87, I
Yes,
see the number.
that are, sustainable. But here we are talking about a sustainable traveler who's looking at where do they go? Yeah? So where do you fit in if you cannot prove you're sustainable? Yeah? Number 2 is about the local stories. Yeah? Who's telling the stories? Earlier on, we were talking about your hometown.
Yes.
Now, who's telling those stories?
I'm going
Where's
to
the
brother in.
continuity of it? Yeah. Recently, I was doing a project in Lamu, and the saddest truth is that I went to a place for the whole time I was there, Pate Island. Most don't even know how many islands consist of Lamu County. And what I found is that the history of Swahili actually starts from Pate. But most of us haven't even spoken about it. So what about guardianship? So those local stories need to be told, but they need to be told by the local people. So this is how you engage them in, promoting that local marketing. And lastly is impact metrics. Can we start talking about what your lodge is? I mean, I will want to invest or purchase a trip in Governors because I will be supporting this number of schools.
Yes.
Yeah? But often what we do is we talk about the number of visitors, the number of arrivals, because it sounds nice. Yeah? So when we talk about marketing, it's about that authenticity. We need to speak about measurable impact because that's why the tourist is purchasing.
And that's what I want Dr. Maingi and Dominic to pick up on. So we've heard that only 87 organizations have license.
Slightly above 100.
Slightly above
But
100.
the study only focused on 87.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Slightly above 100 have the ecosystem
Eco-rating.
certificate, right?
Yes, yes.
And we've already heard that our GDP, 10% of our GDP is in tourism, but that 10 can be pumped up to something higher. So what innovations or what other things in the tourism space can we look at to be able to diversify what tourism looks like in Kenya and in Africa? And Dr. Maingi, after Dominic is done, I'm pinning you on behalf of the people who probably will help. Is marketing expensive? Is ecosystem and inclusion expensive? And then what collaborations do you think can be put in place to be able to work with all these players to be able to make this happen? Dominic, and then...
Thank you. This is such a complex, but it's such an interesting area. I would say one of the first things that we need to look at is not just certification, but I would encourage CEOs of tourism businesses in Kenya to really start learning, train themselves. There's a lot of great thinking out there. UN Sustainable Development Goals, circularity, sustainable development, profit, people, planet frameworks, the long run, these sort of organizations that can really give guidance to commercial entities to allow them to be effective and have impact in this space. And to have impact in this space, you will have to sacrifice some of your bottom line. If we're really going to have an impact, we are going to need to recognize that we as tourism enterprises operate in fragile ecosystems that require support, and we should voluntarily and as part of our long-term business sustainability strategies support those things. So there's a big role for CEOs there to look at the sort of thinking that you're talking about and really understand it. Secondly, this idea about diversity is a real critical one for Kenya right now. Kenya is talking about growing its tourism arrivals from 2.5 to 5 million people. Like, where are they all going to go? Like, if you're going to try and cram them all into existing facilities, we're just going to exacerbate issues we already have. On the other hand, if you look back at Kenya's history, Kenya is a leader. This is the point I was trying to make. Kenya is an absolute leader in the tourism space around the world. Safari tourism started in Kenya. The whole conservancy model is unique, almost unique to Kenya. It's a beautiful thing. But we only look at the conservancies in the Mara and perhaps a little around Amboseli. Are you aware that there's more than 150 conservancies in Kenya? All of these conservancies across the country, they're looking for investors. As Jeremiah said, sometimes you have a lead time as an investor where you're making losses. But if you're only focused on profit, then you're not going to go there. But if, on the other hand, you have a long-term vision and you say, in the long run, I can make profit, but in the short term, let me really make an impact on communities and conservation in this area, now you're really talking. And that, by the way, is how the Mara started 30, 40, 50 years ago. What we're lacking, in my view, at the tourism CEO level is the vision and the risk appetite to start looking for some of those new places and start investing in them. The people are ready. They are, the structures under Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association and Dixon Kayelo's organization is there. The governance structures are there. The legal structures are there. But we just need to look to where we can step out and ease pressure on our existing facilities.
Fantastic. So, how do we get the vision? How do we push the vision? Who do we partner with in terms of trying to grow this? From a corporate perspective, but also from your work in research around tourism.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to build on the conversation, and there's so many trails of thought running through my head as everybody was speaking. But I think the reality at the end of the day is that we would be lying to ourselves if we sat here and didn't accept and acknowledge that businesses are in the business of making money, right? I, on a day-to-day, because I am a sustainability practitioner, I have to every day make the sustainability conversation make business sense, whether it is to an insurer, whether it is to a bank, whether it is to a manufacturer. They are not going to take an investment into solarizing their operations if they do not see a significant return on that investment. They're not going to take, particularly around sort of inclusion and diversity metrics. This is one where I see some of the biggest challenges, is because you have to make the business case to a manufacturer that if you have more women in your supply chain is going to do better. And that's a really difficult conversation to have. So I think the first thing is that making business sense out of this entire conversation really has to be the driver. I think the other thing, especially from a tourism point of view, is that we need to think about the entire ecosystem, right? We want to grow this sector, but the sector is not necessarily just about the services from a hotelier point of view, right? I have seen countless times that I walk into a hotel in Kenya, and you pick up, these beautiful white towels, and they're towels that have come from Marks and Spencer. They're towels that have been produced in, all of these places that are not locally sort of accessible. When I talk about the sector, I'm thinking about that entire ecosystem. How do we make sure that whether it is your bed sheets, whether it is your glasses, whether it is your furniture, we are actually generating an entire ecosystem of economic opportunities beyond, the access to some of these spaces, because I think that's what is the real transformation. I think the other thing, and maybe just picking up of what you said, and I'm not sort of, I don't want to be a doomslayer in any way, but the reality is, climate change is going to be the biggest threat. It is the biggest threat to the survival of businesses today. That is my argument, and I'm happy to defend it. But even as much as I say that, and you talked about the Paris Agreement, and unfortunately, as Africans, I think we get very caught up in the trope of, we are not responsible for this, we need money to come in and pay for this, and we get stuck there. And the moment we get stuck in that space, we don't realize that, yes, developed countries have said they are going to every year give $100 million for development, sustainable economic development, but they're not actually putting that money down. And so if we get stuck in that space of looking outside for this money to come, for these finances to flow, we are going to get stuck without moving forward. Okay. Whereas I will happily argue that we, just looking at banks have money on their own balance sheets to support a green economy.
Thank you.
So we need to make sure that we're actually providing those opportunities for them.
Fantastic. Yeah. Actually, to just mention what Angela said earlier, I was bragging about the county I come from. Yeah. It is a equalizing county, Tharaka Nithi. And what I really brag about Tharaka Nithi is that we have 8 permanent rivers, when Meru County has probably 1 and our neighbors don't have as many. And the reason this happened is because when people were planting the Nyayo T-zones, we had an old elder called Mbogori. Chief Mbogori refused for guys to access our forest for tea. And that's why we have 8 permanent rivers. So as we wrap this, Wangoi and my good friend here, forgetting your name, sorry, tell us who is responsible to make sure that policy happens, and how do we get engaged? Because we have polished papers, and it's as simple as putting rules and someone implementing them. So kindly, you can address that.
Can I go first?
Thank you. As we go on, who is responsible? I want us to reflect on a photo by somebody called Joseph Washira. It is the photo of the last white rhino. Do you people know it?
Yes.
When he's like almost crying. And I want you to reflect as you're here that in the 60s, in the 70s, for centuries, we were boasting biodiversity. The people like the Maasais, the communities, like for instance, a Maasai man cannot eat like a bird cuckoo. They can't eat game because it implies that you're poor. Mm-hmm. But here is the thing, here is what I want us to ask ourselves. The moment we entered into stage, and I mean the elite, the people who are well-traveled, the people who can speak foreign languages, we started experiencing loss of biodiversity at a very fast rate. And the question sometimes I ask myself, for a long time I was speaking for organizations, speaking about the impact that you are making and so on and so forth. Really, are we the people to speak about biodiversity if the people who had no education had preserved biodiversity for us until we entered the scene? That is the question number one. The other question I also want to speak is the concept of greenwashing. We are aware of greenwashing, where companies, organizations, us in academia want to align ourselves with green solution without necessarily meaning things that you're saying. For instance, you will see a cup, like for instance, a sachet saying, recycle me. And then you're wondering, how am I going to recycle this? Another one says, return me. The amount of money that you're going to take, it is an impractical solution. But as we speak about this, and in the area of tourism, who are the solution? Mm-hmm. And that is why I like what she said, that you cannot always say about other people, about other people, about other people. Mm-hmm. So let me speak about my area, which is advocacy. If you go to places such as Europe, if you go to places such as America, if you go to places such as the Mediterranean, where there's a lot of tourism, what I call like religious tourism to the religious sites, tourism is designed in such a way that it helps the people.
Okay.
I have a question, just the last one.
Yeah.
How come in the Maasai, I'm asking myself this one, in the Maasai, in the Samburu area, all the places that you are going, the solution, the tourism is designed in such a way that there is gentrification, there is displacement of those Maasais. After the infrastructure has come up, these Maasais, the Samburus, the Kikuyus, are the people who are undesirable to go to these hotels. And this is what I want us to ask ourselves, even me.
Okay.
As I finish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emmanuel, just say one word and then we can wind up. Sorry.
I'll be very brief. I'll give an example of why I think we are all responsible for the policies. And I'll give, without really beating the national parks or reserves, I'll give an example of how you can experience a game drive and know somebody is responsible. If you go to the conservancies today, whether private or community, you realize there's a clear guideline on how many of you can be in a sighting, how many cars can be a particular place, how you can off-road and not off-road, correct? Those rules are set by ourselves, us being the people operating, the people owning the land. If you go to the government side, the law is even stricter and clearer. But we know the problem that we have. So for me, it's a matter of yourself and myself first policing ourselves. If there's a law and there's a clear policy on an area, then let's respect it. It's as simple as that. And I know we are under pressure from high season and few months of maximizing and all that. But if we don't approach and deal with that, over-tourism is real.
Yeah.
Let's be very honest, over-tourism is real and it's all over the world. Not only Kenya, not only Masai Mara, not Amboseli.
Spain
it's
was
everywhere.
complaining.
You really have to deal it from a personal level.
Yeah.
And then, of course, to hold each other accountable, which is, can we be accountable to an extent where we can hold the government, the parks, the people responsible accountable, but we also should be ready to be held accountable when we are told, you can't put something here.
Yeah.
Just pull back, then pull back. So I think it's shared.
So we've had conservation, commerce. There are many C's, and I'm just summarizing. Conservation, community, collaboration, and commerce. And it's the responsibility of all those P's that we have policy, we have people, we have private sector, we have government, and we have us guys, the person who is doing this. I think it's all our responsibility to make this happen. I know we cannot finish everything we wanted to discuss. I think we are just on question 2, but I really thank you so much for taking your time to come and enlighten us about conservation matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kaimuri Karauki. You've done a fantastic job with your panel. Of course, very well selected panel. And so we want to see what is going on from the side of innovation. I mean, from today onwards, we are saying in Nairobi, not only Nairobi, but in Kenya, we are saying the industry, you don't have to struggle so much thinking about what innovations. Come to the universities. We're going to present here innovations that have been going on at universities in terms of bringing solutions. So the panel, please hang on, and then we give a rapid talk for innovators. 2 innovators will be pitching 5 minutes each. You want to tell the industry and academia here on what is it that you are bringing out in the universities so that the industries can come, walk into the universities and